Hello and welcome to the second webinar for the Young Pacific Leaders Program. My name is Haley Clemson and I'm the Program Development Assistant on the Program Development Team at Cultural Vistas, supporting the YPL Small Grants Program. For those of you who have not worked with Cultural Vistas previously, I'll share a little bit about the organization and help give some context. So we are a nonprofit international exchange organization and the implementing partners for the YPL Small Grants Program, which is funded by the U.S. Department of State and made possible by the U.S. Department of State U.S. Mission to New Zealand. This is important to note because all of the YPL Small Grants Program deadlines and times will be synced to New Zealand time, so just keep that in mind. The YPL Small Grants Program is a program under the YPL Initiative, a youth leadership development initiative organized by the U.S. Department of State. In 2018, the YPL Small Grants Program was launched and so far has had 3 iterations. This will be the 4th iteration. Through the YPL Small Grants Program, YPL alumni have the opportunity to apply for seed funding to implement innovative projects throughout the Pacific region focused on improving their communities, countries, and the region in one or more of the program's 4 core pillars, which are education, environment and resource management, economic and social development, and civic leadership. To help interested alumni prepare to apply for this year's Small Grants Program, Cultural Vistas is hosting these preparatory webinars to provide additional information and guidance to help teams with their project proposals. The first webinar took place last week on the 11th of August and was focused on helping interested teams better understand what is required for the application, the program, and how to write a compelling competitive proposal. This second webinar is intended to help interested teams better understand the roles of each core team member and provide a few different tips for you to consider while organizing your project and team. Next week's webinar will review the development of a thorough and detailed budget and budget justification narrative. All the webinars will be held at 9 a.m. New Zealand time via Zoom using the same access information that you used to attend today. The next and final webinar will be on the 25th of August, next Thursday. Webinar attendance is not required. However, it is strongly encouraged for you to attend or watch the recording, as there will be more information provided to assist with applications, as well as a chance to answer any questions that you may have about the application. It is also an opportunity to better understand the requirements for grant applications in general that are not related to the YPL Small Grants Program. For those of you joining us live today, at the end of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A. Once we get to that section of the webinar, you can raise your hand and we'll go ahead and let you ask your question. But if you are also welcome to submit questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the presentation as well. For those unable to attend live today, you can email your questions to yplgrants@culturalvistas.org, and those will be answered and possibly discussed further during the next webinar. So with that, let's jump right in. On the screen, you'll find a brief program timeline. This is to outline for you the remaining webinar dates and program-related dates that you should be aware of. You'll see we have the final webinar next week, and we'll be covering the topic of budget curation and project management. Many of you have budget questions and we'll be able to answer those then. The webinar is scheduled for the 25th of August, 2022 at 9 a.m. New Zealand time via the same Zoom meeting information for this link. As we've already said a few times, we'd love to have you there as well. Also listed in the timeline is the application deadline, which is the 29th of August, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. New Zealand time. You will also see the expected notification time of selected applications, which is in September of 2022. Cultural Vistas will notify selected teams as well as non-selected projects via email. Once the selected grantees are finalized and teams have confirmed their participation in the program, Cultural Vistas will begin travel arrangements for all 3 core team members to attend a mandatory kickoff workshop in Auckland, New Zealand over the days of the 7th and 8th of November in 2022 to prepare the selected core team members for the beginning of their small grant project implementation. Attendance during the workshop is required for all 3 core team members. Teams will implement projects from November 2022 through May 2023. Once the project implementation period is complete, Cultural Vistas will arrange a debriefing seminar to discuss the learnings, challenges, and successes of the project implementation. This is projected for June 2023 in Auckland, New Zealand, and all team leaders will be required to attend. Now that you have a nice overview of what the timeline of the Small Grants program looks like, we'll discuss some core team eligibility. Today, we are going to discuss organizing a strong team to help you implement your small grants proposal ideas. For the YPL Small Grants program, it is required that each proposed project include a project leader, project treasurer, and project secretary. These members will be deemed the core team members. These are also key supporting members for the project and those who ensure the project is in line to meet the proposed goals. Any successful project needs a strong team behind it. The proposal requires outlining 3 core team members, not only to make your proposal stronger by showing that there are 3 people supporting that project, but also to prepare a team to help delineate responsibility across the project if selected. To submit a proposal, the team must meet the following eligibility requirements. Firstly, at least 1 core team member must be a former YPL conference attendee. This is meaning that someone on your core team must have previously attended a YPL conference. Not all core team members have to be an alum, but just 1 member of the core team must. This can be any member of the core team, the leader, treasurer, or secretary. There can also be more than 1 alumni on the team. There are no restrictions on that. If you would like a team with all 3 being YPL conference alumni, that is fine as well. All core team members must also be between the ages of 20 and 35 and possess citizenship from a YPL member country. Additionally, US citizens must demonstrate that their project is regionally focused outside of the United States, be part of a cross-country team, or provide a cultural exchange element. This is due to the US federal regulations outlined in the funding that makes this program possible. This is also a great reminder for any project with US citizens or otherwise to collaborate across the Pacific. We have had many cross-country projects and always support this collaboration. Consider your resources in other YPL alumni across the Pacific as you are developing your proposal. Fourth, the project must address one of the following YPL pillar themes, being education, environment and resource management, civic leadership, and economic and social development. Additionally, previous YPL Small Grant Program core team members, project leaders, treasurers, or secretaries are ineligible to reapply. You can find these eligibility requirements listed in the application as well if you need to revisit them at any point while you are developing your project. As you put together your project proposals, and especially your teams, it is important to understand the roles, responsibilities, and requirements of each specific core team member. Starting with the project leader is the person who holds the overall responsibility for the successful initiation, planning, design, execution, monitoring, and closure of the small grants project. The project leader is the head of the project implementation and will help to delineate responsibilities to other members of the project, especially the other core team members. The project leader will help manage and guide the team, as well as the different phases of the project as they are developed and implemented. The project leader is the go-to person for the project and will need to be the most flexible of the 3 core team members, given that they will need to step in at a certain time to help ensure phases of the project are moving in accordance with the work plan. They also need to be the leader of those supporting and working on the project and must set clear, achievable goals for the project in consultation with the other core team members. It's very important for project teams to work collaboratively together towards the project's goals, with each core team member having their set individual goals and responsibilities. As the core team, and more specifically the project leader, you must try to build a team that works together with common aims, all working towards the same final goal of your project. One of the biggest pieces of the project leader's role is clear and open communication. Throughout the small grants process, as projects are developed, selected, and implemented, communication is key to ensuring success. It is important that the core team operate harmoniously together, as the project can only be successful with the work of all members in their respective roles. Often the project leader is the guide and force behind ensuring open communication among team members. Another level of communication required of the project leader is to the funder and overall grant program manager, which in this case is us at Cultural Vistas. Project leaders are expected to keep Cultural Vistas up to date on major project updates and issues, as well as provide project-related information as needed or requested on our behalf. Now to the treasurer. The project treasurer will handle all finances of the small grants project, including the receiving of grant funds, budget tracking, budget management, and providing budget updates. The treasurer should be able to receive the small grant fund transfers to their bank account from a US bank account. It is required that upon project selection, the project treasurer provides their banking information for the funds to be dispersed to the project. Throughout the implementation period, the treasurer will be instrumental in the project budgeting and budget tracking to ensure the expenses are in line with the approved budget. The treasurer should continue to keep track of funds and expenses, as well as have an organized system for logging receipts of related project purchases throughout the full implementation period. Each monthly report, they will need to provide budget updates, including a narrative and receipts, to the project secretary, who will be submitting the reports to Cultural Vistas throughout the implementation period. Again, it is important that this person be trustworthy, organized, and reliable to track all this information and meet important deadlines. Small grant project funds will be distributed in 3 separate intervals throughout the program. The first will be 60% of the funds at the beginning of implementation, followed by 35% in the middle, and 5% of the funds at the end. Again, the person acting as project treasurer should be trustworthy, organized, and have a bank account to receive these funds, as well as be prepared to track the expenses and keep an organized log of program receipts. Last of the core team members, but certainly not least, the project secretary. The project secretary will compile all monthly, midterm, and final reports, submitting them with provided instructions from Cultural Vistas. The project secretary's role also includes managing communications like project narratives, photo documenting, and social media engagement. The person in this role will also communicate project updates to Cultural Vistas often through the reports and otherwise. Failure to provide up-to-date information on the status of the project and the required reports in a timely fashion could result in the loss of funding for the project. While you are putting together the project proposal, it's very important to consider your team and the responsibilities associated with each role, as well as the skills and time commitment needed to fulfill them. A synchronized and reliable team helps to ensure smooth and successful project implementation and provides a strong support system for the project in helping to reach the project goals. In all the roles and within the team, it is important to maintain clear and open communication. Each core team member should ensure that the other core team members know what is going on with their project responsibilities, especially when it comes to overall project objectives, delays, or issues, as these will affect all 3 core team members and the responsibilities that they're required to fulfill. Putting together a project proposal and ensuring a strong team will impact each part of your project implementation, as implementing your project will require all roles to step in and fill their responsibilities. For example, submitting your required monthly reports with a strong team will be a team effort. The project leader may be overseeing that the reports are ready on time and that other core team members are on top of the reports and have the support that they need. They also may be monitoring the overall progress of the project in relation to the work plan and contacting Cultural Vistas with any updates or concerns before the submission deadline. The project treasurer would be working on their portion of the report, a budget report, and any receipt tracking to get it to the secretary in time to include in the monthly, midterm, or final report submission. And the secretary would be compiling the information needed for the report and submitting on time. As you can see, strong core member teamwork is needed to meet deadlines, and communication across the team can ensure that project implementation and each aspect of the project runs smoothly. This is just one example of why a strong core team is important. Now that you know more about each role and the responsibilities associated with that role, here are some things to consider while putting together your team. Firstly, methods of communication. What methods work best for those who are taking on core team member roles? Additionally, it is important to think through what other team capacity you will need. For example, if it is an exchange program or workshop, you may need volunteers. Spelling out who will be responsible for those types of project pieces is also important. Additionally, scheduling and time commitment. While 6 months is not a long time in terms of project implementation, it is important to remember that while thinking about the scale of your projects, 6 months can be a long time in terms of the time commitment for those involved, especially those balancing work and school commitments on top of the project. It is imperative that those signing on to the project as a core team member can commit the time needed to implement and fulfill the full project requirements through the program's entirety. The implementation period, as a reminder, is November 22nd to May 2023. Sorry, November 2022 to May 2023. So you will want to find core team members that are available and responsive for this time period of implementation. The larger time commitments in regard to overall YPL small grant programming are the kickoff workshop, which is to help selected teams digest the information, understand the requirements further, and have the opportunity to refine their projects, make final budget adjustments, and get feedback on their projects. All core team members are required to attend the kickoff workshop, and it takes place in Auckland, New Zealand over the dates of 7th and 8th of November, 2022. All programming and expenses for this workshop will be covered by YPL and arranged by Cultural Vistas, so you do not need to budget for this in your project proposal. Also to note is the program debriefing seminar. At the conclusion of the program, a debriefing seminar will be held where all team leaders will be asked to represent the project and share the successes, challenges, highlights, and more of the past 6 months. This is projected for June 2023 in Auckland, New Zealand. Again, all programming and expenses for this seminar will be covered by YPL and arranged by Cultural Vistas, so you do not need to budget for them in your project proposal. For more information on team and program requirements, you can visit culturalvistas.org/YPL. You can also find the information on program requirements and eligibility listed in the application itself, to which the link is listed on the slide. You can also find the application link in our previously sent email, as well as on the YPL alumni Facebook group page. Before we move on to questions, now that you have a better idea of the roles, here are a few more things to consider. Put a great deal of thought into your project team members and be sure to understand the commitment each is making. For those proposals that are planning a project across countries, keep in mind different time zones, currencies, cultural traditions, customs, and preferred and accessible methods of communication. In terms of the process, it's helpful to ensure that you have clarified the processes and activities that will lead to the project's outputs and deliverables while thinking about your work plan. When considering your work plan, it is also helpful to develop one that provides you with the information that enables your team to estimate properly the budget and resources you need and defines your project's goals and scope. This will help you visualize the entire project and see the interdependencies between project responsibilities and roles among your team members. This will also help to show the task breakdown across core team members and other supporting team members, as well as to forecast your resource requirements with the funding disbursement timeline. Going off of that, when developing your timeline, make sure that the funding disbursement timeline matches your work plan timeline and that your timeline will be feasible with the amount of funding that you will have at any given time during your implementation. Monitoring and evaluation is also an important piece of your project. Thinking about how you will be tracking the project pieces and what methods work best for your team is very helpful when it comes to reporting and monitoring and evaluation. On that note, you should also think through the different monitoring and evaluation methods for tracking project progress. How will you indicate and measure achieved milestones? In terms of sustainability, another important piece to think about is your plan for longer-term sustainability of your project, as well as if you need a public-facing communication strategy to uplift that sustainability. Social media is a great tool for this. Planning for the unexpected. Last and certainly not least, do you have a backup plan for various components of your project? If yes, what other resources would you need for those backup plans? It's important to not only think about the required pieces of your project proposal, but additionally those pieces that will occur after implementation begins. We mention this now because the proposal is setting the scene for the project implementation period, and mitigating for possible unexpected in your planning can help.